You start the webinar?
I just moved in.
I moved to webinar. That should not automatically start it. Alrighty, I'm going to kill my video and let me see if we're live. Yeah, I did accidentally start it, so we are live. Hello, everyone.
I love it when a plan comes together.
Yes, so welcome everyone. We will start this presentation shortly. Please grab a drink and get ready while everyone joins.
Well, Mike, I will say this. I like being at least a few minutes ahead because it's a good opportunity to allow things to settle out and for people to settle in. So, you know, in the military, being ahead of schedule is being on time.
Definitely. That's even a proverb in some sites. Like if you're on time, then you're late.
Yeah, exactly. And I try to now that I'm no longer serving in uniform in the U.S. Navy, as a reservist, I try to extend myself and also the folks on my teams the same thing, that level of grace, knowing that sometimes meetings and other things run back to back to back, which ultimately from a coaching standpoint isn't the best way of handling it. However, helping people understand that creating a little bit of buffer between activities is not a bad thing. And if you do show up early, then you're being kind of respectful to whoever is hosting or facilitating the next activity, whether that be a meeting or an event or whatever that action where everybody needs to be involved happens to be.
Totally agree with you. And it's especially easier now that the calendars have that feature of early finishes.
Yes. Yes.
To help you get in time on the next meeting.
Yes. Thank you.
My usual thing is I get the 5-minute warning and I just join the meeting at that time because heck, no one looks at you funny if you join a meeting 5 minutes early, and then I can just forget about it and don't have to worry about forgetting about the meeting.
Exactly, bud. Yeah, without question. And I find that that's a great time to connect with other folks on the call too. So it actually sets a better tone for whatever that meeting is going to be, especially if you know it's going to be a little bit of, there may be some contentious conversation or a little bit of friction. It kind of eases some of that tension, and for me, it allows me to introduce those things in a little bit more human way, a human fashion. So, hey, Mike, guess what? We're at the hour now.
Yes, we are. So welcome everybody. And we will start this presentation in just a couple of minutes, giving up time for everyone to grab their drinks, to grab their lunch. So get ready.
And this allows me some time to sip my tea so that my voice carries for the entire duration of the improving talk. So I am expecting that many of our colleagues are going to join, since this may be the first time that they've heard me deliver this. So for all of my improving colleagues, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to listen to me share. And as well, given my presence on LinkedIn, if you happen to come across this post and you saw it and you said, hey, I haven't heard Tim speak about this yet, thank you. I appreciate it. Having my network from social media join is always a privilege and a pleasure.
Thank you for that warm welcome. And we're just 1 minute ahead of starting. So get ready.
Yeah, and by the way, a little fun fact, I was thinking about whether or not I should share my audio and play some introductory music, like, what that theme song might be, uh, similar to uh, sporting events, and I even certain entertainment venues where people get ushered on stage. And I couldn't find anything. My suggestion when we were prepping for this the other day was, I think I probably need to dig out some Van Halen. And so if you're not familiar with Van Halen, do yourself a favor, do a little bit of a search. Of course, that ages me a little bit, but there's a bit of wisdom and experience in all of this. But I couldn't land on a specific Van Halen song that I wanted to be my intro music. So comfortable silence, which I'm very good at facilitating. And Mike, why don't you take it away, sir?
That sounds awesome. Thank you for handling that out. So, hello everybody, and welcome to this new edition of our weekly improving talks. Thank you for joining us. Remember that you can use the Q&A function located at the bottom center of the screen to send questions to the presenter, and we will also have a dedicated Q&A section at the end of the session. Today's presenter, as you may have heard, is Tim Dickey, our senior consultant from the Dallas office, who's been at Improving for more than 4 years, and also served in the United States Navy for nearly 25 years until his retirement in 2016. Besides these awesome achievements, Tim has worked for big names such as Carnival Cruise Lines, Verizon, and IBM. And now that he's based in Improving Dallas office, he helps teams to achieve greatness using agile practices and servant leadership principles. So without further ado, I'll leave you with Tim. I'll be in the background checking out the chat and Q&A, and please don't hesitate to send over your questions. Tim.
All right, Mike, thank you for the wonderful, warm introduction. I really appreciate it. And of course, I appreciate everybody who is joining on this, a little bit of a story journey. So there's going to be a bit of an arc here, kind of connecting the experiences and what I've learned as far as people in the hero complex. So I'll get a bit more into that as we go along. But first, I'm going to lead with a story. On board my first submarine, the USS Archerfish, it was a fast attack, SSN 678. There was an auxiliary machinist named Don. And Don was an incredible mechanic and fabricator. This guy was the guy who could solve just about any problem with a mechanical system. On one occasion, he actually designed and milled a new seawater fitting for the engine room as a replacement part. Wasn't available in our supply system or on board the submarine tender where we were tied up next to. We were deployed to the Mediterranean and supporting special missions, and we just couldn't afford to wait for the local team to fabricate a replacement themselves. By the way, he was so good that by the time he transferred, he had received 3 Navy Achievement Medals and was promoted to Chief Petty Officer in the process. There was one problem with that. Don was a hero at the right time, a one-man show, doing it all and getting the bulk of the recognition for the solution. And I was in awe of his ability to deliver results. And I saw him as a role model of sorts. And as a junior sailor, working in an entirely different department, in fact, I made copies of his awards to make sure that they got into his personal file. I realized that years later, his behavior was kind of counterproductive. Now, don't get me wrong, I compared Don's way of saving the day to others who had approached similar situations just a bit differently, and recognized that the difference between being a hero and showing how to be a hero who builds team trust raises everybody's performance around them. So, hello, thank you for being here. Sorry, I cannot hear you over my own awesomeness and how being a hero erodes trust. And I have a question. This is probably a bit of a rhetorical question. Are you or your teams struggling with one or more heroes? If so, you're in the right place, because this session is really designed to give you some insights and help you potentially realign the team and the heroes to achieve better outcomes. From my early days in the Navy, I embraced what I call the three keys for precision execution or precise execution: policy, process, and procedure. And those three P's gave me outstanding results. In the military, heroes are valued for their selfless actions towards successful goal and mission accomplishment, which is due to an innate understanding of the three P's and how they work together to support success. Now, once I left the Navy, I developed and applied the processes to earn college degrees and to pass many certifications in industry. And yet, it began to dawn on me that the three P's don't apply all the time and in every situation. So, as time has flowed like a winding stream through a forest, I've become aware that not every situation, project, or team needs to operate as crisply as the submarine crews that I served with in the Navy. As well, most work can be accomplished without the need for heroic behavior. Teamwork and trust are essential in many environments and work settings, in submarines, special operations, and certainly in business. As a member of the Agile community, I share lessons that I've learned the hard way about how you might help your teams. And I want to encourage you to maintain an open mind and gather insight through feedback, reflection, and adaptation of my stories to your business context. Now, you know a little bit about me, so you might be wondering, hey, what's in it for me or WIFM? On a side note, WIFM in the military might be called bottom line upfront or bluff. So that is a fair question to be asking yourself. And I'm going to share what you might learn in this session. Now, first of all, I want to give you a disclaimer. What is being shared is based on my experience and should not be considered repeatable, only referenceable. I strongly encourage you to learn from my stories and potentially avoid similar mistakes to achieve better results. So the 3 points that I would like for you to consider are how to recognize the hero complex, associated behavior, and engage team trust. Point number 2, encourage team enabling behavior from the hero or heroes on your team. And third, cultivate trust, develop just-in-time heroes, and heroic teams. Dawn was not my first or last encounter with heroes. As I learned from supporting and watching other teams in the military and in business, I realized some common indicators that tend to show in team members who have the hero complex. Hey, Tim, what is the hero complex? Hey, you know what? I'm glad you asked. Well, not literally, but rhetorically asked. I want you to reflect for a moment on or about a team that you may have been on in the past or you might presently be on. So consider the person who was maybe the go-to expert based on their knowledge, skills, and abilities. Reflect on how that felt to work with that person. Did that person answer all of your questions like Google or Siri? Did that person work tirelessly to meet looming deadlines? Did that person step into the middle of crisis or chaos and bring order to a situation, ultimately saving the day? Did that person share their experience with other team members, coach the team to be better and more capable? With those reflections in mind, indicators of the hero complex might be one of the following. A team member who is committed to the team and yet not committed to the team. Clarifying there, not committed to the team, holistically, but they're able to deliver amazing results while grumbling about the work the entire time that they're completing it. Maybe it's a team member who shows up at just the right moment to complete a task at the razor's edge towards the 11th hour of the time box and then gets cheered for saving the day while not showing up to complete the work ahead of schedule. There are more behavior warning lights than this. And these two behaviors are the ones that I've seen regularly. The following is possibly the worst case example or scenario of the hero complex played out. There might be a team member who literally creates a problem, recognizes the problem quickly, and then works tirelessly to solve the problem. And this happens while blaming the team for not catching the risk before it became an issue. No, seriously, I've seen this. There are people who actually and hopefully unintentionally create problems that only they can solve and then complain about how they're always putting out the fires. Certainly not team supporting or trust building behavior. Now, it's worth noting that the hero complex can show up in subtle and less impactful and less extreme ways. At times, the hero complex can be very tough to spot. It might be casual comments said with a smile and a gentle headshake, and the willingness to jump in and into the mix and provide a quick fix. The hero might write down most of the steps to perform complicated work, but accidentally or forgetfully leave out one or two critical information pieces. The hero might run through training or work examples so quickly in real time that there should be a pause button that the team can push when the information is flowing too fast. These are just a few examples of how the hero complex can be disguised as genuine helpfulness or teamwork. These actions can lead to a sense of learned helplessness where the team is quite dependent on the hero to get the toughest work done. A personal example of this subtle learned helplessness is when I was on a Navy deployment and our team received orders to a new mission. I decided to figure out what our mission was, which command we were supporting in Afghanistan, and how to get us from Kuwait to Bagram, Kabul, Kandahar, or some other place where we were needed. I used my network to get information, to get in contact with the receiving command, and arrange for our flight plans. Now, there was one problem with this approach. I did this without much involvement from the team, and boy, was that a mistake. I should have asked for help and kept as many people in the loop as were interested in knowing what was going on. I failed to notice that while I was task focused towards achieving results, the team was information starved, sitting on the sidelines, waiting to get in the game. In retrospect, I should have asked someone for their assistance and asked each person to work on the problems they felt most comfortable handling, while enabling communication between team members to grow and sustain trust among us. I made that team dependent on me to solve the problems around our mission change. I acted without providing concrete, actionable details around how we might pivot while gaining the team's agreement, alignment, and support. A lesson learned the hard way about being a hero while damaging trust in an attempt to exercise leadership behavior. Oh, and by the way, leadership is an emergent behavior that anyone on the team can demonstrate. In self-organizing and self-managing teams, demonstrating leadership can lead to team agility, increased team trust if everyone is invested in achieving the outcomes the team and the organization desire. One of my former IBM colleagues, Mo, said it something like this: we can agree and commit, or we can disagree and commit. Either way, we need to commit and act. The other part of this point is gauging team trust. The signals might be plain to see or hear around team trust, like the team doesn't really want to work with the hero, or the team is resigned to accepting the hero's behavior, or worse, the team works against the hero and the organization's goals. The distrust indicators could be subtle. Not enough hero behavior or the hero complex to break trust completely all at once, but enough hero behavior to slowly erode trust over time. Weak signals are harder to detect, as the hero may not have any desire for recognition or being in the spotlight. Just that drive to step in, to try to avoid failure while not learning from the experience. Some team signs might be being absent more than usual to meetings or work, being disengaged in conversations or meetings, avoiding conversations, even avoiding other team members beyond just avoiding the person or people who are demonstrating the hero complex. This behavior may not lead to explicit action or feedback from the team and may require a delicate probing on an individual team member basis. The team's response to the behavior, the way the team reacts or approaches the hero leading into, during, and after a response may shed some light on the trust dynamic. With that said, let's pivot to the triangles on the slide. They illustrate two concepts most of us may be aware of in our own personal and professional lives. To the left is the dreaded drama triangle, or DDT. And to the right is the empowerment dynamic, or TED triangle. Author David Emerald wrote about both triangles in his book, The Power of TED, the Empowerment Dynamic. A team goal should be to move from the dreaded drama triangle, which breaks down trust, and move to the empowerment dynamic triangle, which rebuilds and restores team trust. I want to note that with agile teams, trust breakdown might be easier or more difficult to surface. Most agile teams seek positive intent from each other, and the hero complex may not be immediately apparent within the team. If team health begins to trend negatively, either blatantly, openly, or subtly, under kind of covert approaches or actions, it might be an indicator that the hero is working hard to save the day without understanding the potential damage to the team, to team trust. So before I move on to the next thought, Mike, do we have any questions?
Thank you, Tim. Yes, we do have one from our audience, and it says, how do I know if I am the hero? I guess it has to do with these subtle behaviors that you mentioned.
I'll say this. Self-reflection, kind of looking at where you're at and what you're doing and what your intent is, it's very tough. And you might ask people that you trust, and be that in your personal life or your professional life, hey, do I seem like this? Does my behavior appear to be just a little off, maybe selfish or self-serving? Am I doing things that don't necessarily get the results that I desire and kind of put everybody else off a little bit? So, it's tough. And I'm saying this having to look at the mirror myself and go, am I doing the right thing here, or am I creating problems while trying to solve them? So I hope that answers your question. So thanks for queuing that up, Mike.
Thank you, Tim. And we also have another one related to that that reads, how will you build trust again when everybody is relying on you?
There is a process that I use, and usually it starts out like this. First, I admit my fault and failure. I come out very transparently and say, look, I failed, I screwed up. And I can see where I made the mistake here or there, or a series of decisions that put us into that state. And I say, then I make a commitment to whoever it is that is probably most hurt by that. And I say, I am going to commit to rebuilding trust here. I want to ask for your forgiveness for breaking it, and I need your help and feedback to make sure that I'm moving in the right direction. Now, that takes a lot of courage, so I'm not going to underestimate how much that might cause more tension in the grand scheme of things. But once the admission is there and the acceptance of the fact that we got to this place because it was my individual actions or even my collective inaction in certain cases. I find that that is the pathway to really rebuilding and restoring trust. And it doesn't happen overnight. In most cases with team members, especially in the professional environment, if this is not repeat behavior where people know you by reputation, that this is what you do, it should be a lot easier to walk down that path. Again, it's a very difficult path. It is not for the faint of heart. It definitely takes courage. And if you're going to do that, I would suggest that you bring your allies, professional allies as well as personal allies, people who are going to support you, because we all need a little bit of additional support, especially when we're admitting that we were wrong, we made mistakes, and it put us in a bad position, because they're the ones who are going to be the encouragement to cheer us on to doing the tough work, changing behavior, and achieving different results, as part of rebuilding and restoring team trust. So thank you for that question. All right, Mike, any other questions?
No more questions so far.
All right, excellent. So now on to my next thought. All right, for me, my toughest learning comes from failure, from working so hard often to make it happen that I cannot hear my teammates over my own awesomeness. And understand that I strive for excellence and precise execution in my work. I am a recovering perfectionist, and I'm also a recovering engineer. I have pushed myself and others to points that have caused me to make bad choices and experience a lifetime of regret. One of my mentors, Tim, who is also a retired Navy SEAL, said to me that I have the heart to be on the teams, but my body couldn't take the physical punishment. And I consider that pretty high praise for a guy like me, who's not very athletic, has eye challenges, and couldn't type fast enough to join the Navy and be a journalist at one point in time. I share all of that to say this. I am my own worst enemy when it comes to learning and practicing team enabling behavior. Some of the best coaching advice that I ever received was from my great friend Byron, who I met while working on cruise ships for Carnival Cruise Line in Miami. He gave me some straight talk. It was really tough medicine to swallow a few years after I left the submarine force and prior to serving in the special operations community as a member of the Navy Reserve. Byron pointed out my willingness to take shortcuts to achieve the next goal or objective that I had in mind. I had not considered the impact of my shortcuts and how it might be creating space for my hero complex to show up and save the day. He told me the unvarnished truth, and it hit me hard, to the point where I really needed to look at my motives and do some soul searching. He was right, I was wrong, and I adjusted my attitude and behavior while putting in the hard work to get the results I wanted without cutting corners. And I can say to this day that Byron is still one of my best friends, even in spite of him telling me some hard truth. So I am very aware that what I'm about to say to you may not sit well. Not every team can handle a blunt assessment like Byron's to me about how I achieved results. I'm sorry, teammate. We always need to remember that each of us is a person who is struggling with self-doubts, influencing feelings, negative emotions, and just trying to deal with the challenges of everyday life. If the hero is the type who might not be able to receive direct feedback in the moment when the behavior shows up, continue to proceed with caution and empathy while providing that feedback. It's a delicate balance, and I don't have a good answer for how and when that should be delivered, but it is something to keep in mind. Feedback in the moment is probably right and timely, but you've got to gauge where the person is at. And if that moment is not right, do some reflection on your past experiences with the hero and ask some probing questions of the hero prior to providing feedback. once your sense making is complete, choose that right time and place if it has to be a delayed conversation, and prepare for that conversation with the hero privately to preserve the trust and support the team dynamic. And I'm saying this to preserve individual trust with the hero while supporting your team dynamic. I would also suggest inviting a neutral observer who is not on the team as company and organizational policy advises or permits. Without that sense-making activity to figure out where the hero is in their own head, you might be making matters worse rather than making matters better. As well, talk through what team enabling behavior looks like with the hero if that time permits in that conversation. Don't try and overwhelm the conversation with details, as feedback is processed at different rates by different people. It might actually be advisable to separate the conversation on the feedback from the conversation on team enabling behavior if the hero becomes defensive in the first part with the feedback. This will allow the hero to reflect on the information being presented before proceeding with next steps for encouraging changes in behavior. Now, I want to pause for a moment and allow that to set in. That is a very heavy part of this whole conversation. If you suspect that the hero on the team may have underlying unspoken challenges that are a point of cause for their behavior, do the best that you can to gently conclude the feedback conversation and engage with your human resources team. That type of situation may call for clinical professionals specifically trained to work in that space of human behavior. And this leads me to a story that is part of my own journey away from the hero complex, while finding a new normal for me, navigating the effects of post-traumatic stress from my time in uniform and my deployments to Afghanistan. For a few years after my final deployment, my second to Afghanistan, I was really tightly wound. I was stressed, I was strained, and really immersed in my work. I was also easily frustrated, short-tempered, and quick to get angry when I felt ignored professionally or not taken seriously in my business career. I was really torn by how I could be respected while performing my reserve military duties and yet be disregarded back in my real job. Once I retired from the Navy Reserve, my response to stress triggers only got worse, to the point where after false starts, misunderstandings, and missteps, I found myself in the ranks of the underemployed. I had to take a hard look at my actions, my behavior, and my results to figure out how I had ended up in that situation. I discovered for myself that I needed to heal from post-traumatic stress. I was not a hero to anyone. I could not pull off miracles anymore, and I had reached the end of my road in a search for validation after my time in uniform. I worked through my hurt, my healing, and finding what normal looks like for me each and every day. I needed to see the work that I do, the world that we live in, and the teams that I support differently as I came to terms with my own needs and weaknesses. That's a little heavy, but I wanted to be transparent about how this plays into where I'm at as far as helping teams. Maybe your hero is not suffering from a large personal or professional setback. Maybe it's rooted in childhood bullying or organization dysfunction, or even just temperament challenges. Not everybody works well on teams. And teams can learn to work with their hero and help the hero work through the causes of their hero complex. Everything in this is about exercising caution, as organizational culture may be enabling and reinforcing the hero complex both wittingly or unwittingly. Leaders and managers should be engaged and involved in supporting both the team and the hero to work towards learning team enabling behavior. So a few examples of team enabling behavior might be asking the hero to demonstrate or teach skills to fellow team members, providing support for a side project that the hero has a keen interest in completing but doesn't have the time or the ability to get it done alone. Maybe it's the team rallying around the hero as the hero presents at a conference or a community group to affirm the hero's value to the team. Remember, the team doesn't have to travel this road alone in the process of helping the hero develop team enabling behavior. Leadership and management do have active roles to play in the process as well. They help create the environment that reduces the opportunity for heroes to flourish and amplify the structures that support team success. I wanted to take a pause. Mike, do we have any questions?
We're good so far.
Okay, excellent. So I'm going to refer back to our slide and wrapping this thought up. A goal should be that the hero and the team work together and everybody begins to move away from the roles of victim, persecutor, or rescuer / hero and toward the roles of creator, coach, and challenger. This shifts the conversation from anxiety-based, problem-focused behavior to passion-based, outcome-focused team interactions. A result could be less strife and more harmony between team members. Now, on to my final point, and this is a two-part point. So as we begin to transition into this final thought, I want to highlight the importance of rebuilding, restoring, and returning trust as a primary objective for all parties. Without trust, personal trust, and team trust, the team will not be able to achieve the desired outcomes they're working towards or support the organization's needs. In Stephen M.R. Covey's The Speed of Trust, he writes about the 5 waves of trust model shown in the graphic on the left-hand side of the slide. Consider if your hero is not able to trust themselves, let alone trust their teammates. How can the hero trust the organization? It begins with a conscious effort and working agreement within the team to continue the process of developing new habits that encourage team enabling behavior from the heroes. Trust can be restored through consistent team-centered communication around the work that needs to be done. The team may develop the polite code phrase for the hero when it thinks the hero is diving back into old, damaging behavior patterns. The phrase might be, "We're all heroes here," or, "Ooh, I can see some heavy lifting." Self-managing teams can set the dynamics so that the hero feels comfortable or feels accountable to the team for achieving the goals of the team and be perceived as a valuable team member. A novel outcome of the hero developing team-enabling behavior might be an environment for the growth of just-in-time heroes and a heroic team. Imagine for a moment a team developing a complicated algorithm and the hero coaching 2 or 3 capable and smart team members. Maybe the resulting algorithm is so simple, well-crafted, and easy to use that it becomes a company standard for the other teams to follow in their own development work. Maybe it's a product design co-developed by the team that deeply connects with the customer and drives revenue to new levels for everyone's benefit. Maybe it's troubleshooting an outage together that restores service to thousands of customers while preserving the organization's reputation, all because the hero or heroes replicated their own key skills and abilities and others who became just-in-time heroes themselves. These scenario types are a business dream. I can share with you that I have actually seen this happen in the Navy. I had an outstanding intelligence analyst who was a hero. Mel could pull a thread and find supporting intelligence for her theories like no other analyst I had worked with professionally. Her work was excellent and rock solid. But she needed coaching on her team working skills. We worked as a team to help her get past her personal challenges and to position her for success. She began training fellow analysts to become as capable as she was. In her weak areas, the other teammates became just-in-time heroes the unit needed to support operations. To illustrate the concept of a just-in-time hero, I'm going to refer back to the power of TED. David Emerald writes, first described by Dr. Stephen Karpman in the 1960s, the drama triangle roles of victim, the primary role, persecutor, which the victim blames for their suffering, and rescuer, who steps in and to try and take away the victim's suffering. Their interplay, those three roles, their interplay vividly describe the most common strategies human beings use to manage their fear and anxiety. Renamed the dreaded drama triangle, or DDT, in The Power of TED, the DDT aptly describes the toxic nature of these roles. People shift in and out of these three roles in the dreaded drama triangle. All three of the roles have their roots in a problem orientation and a focus on what they don't want or don't like. Focus on what they don't want or don't like. Each role sees the others as problems to react to. The empowerment dynamic is a positive alternative to the drama triangle. TED is a set of relationships or roles that offer substitute to living life as a victim. TED inspires the realization that choice can lead to positive approaches to life's challenges. Reconnecting to our dreams, our desires, and taking action towards those outcomes requires a shift in mindset for most people. And when shifts happen, you move into a creator, a challenger, or a coach role. Greater awareness and options become available to you. I would like to encourage you to consider these concepts when you're working with the hero on your team. Think about how TED might help change the conversation and create just-in-time heroes, and how the 5 waves of trust might influence how to establish and restore trust within your team. To conclude this, I want to refer to this graphic one more time. The end goal for the hero and the team should be to switch from a poor me to I can do it response to challenges. So bringing this all home for a landing.
So,
Yep.
We have a question from the audience. Do you
Sure.
want to handle it now?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. So it says, trust is an element difficult to rebuild. In your experience, what's the best strategy to begin rebuilding it? And perhaps you could provide an example.
Okay. I'm going to take a page out of my personal life on this. And it does touch on a relationship that I've, have with our daughters. And one time I kind of made a mistake with one of our daughters, and I don't remember exactly what the context was, but I definitely saw that I had hurt her and I had broken trust. And for me, it was apologizing, first recognizing, oh my gosh, I've broken trust here, and recognizing that I needed to apologize, not really knowing what necessarily that point of offense was, or that point where I broke trust was, but saying to her, you know what, I am so sorry. I I know I've done something here that has hurt you, and I realize that, to an extent, you trusted me to do something, or I said I would promise to do something, and I didn't. And for that, that was my mistake. And subsequently, that opened the door to a conversation where I had to really sit back and listen to her objectively describe what it was keeping a very open mind, because our feelings are not invalid. So if somebody feels something or feels like you did something to them that's not right or wrong, there's no yes or no here. This is not a zero-sum game, where one person's right and one person's wrong. I accepted what she had to say. I did not try to justify my behavior, but I said, you know what? I can understand how that hurt you, and I can understand how that broke trust. And what I want to do to avoid something like this in the future, I'm apologizing. I'm sorry. I can't go back and fix it now. But I would ask that before it gets to this point, and now this is at a point where our kids are a little bit older, past elementary school and into middle school and high school. If you see something like this where I'm about to commit to something and you suspect that I'm not going to be able to follow through on that, just ask me, are you serious about this? Can I count on you to give me a moment to reflect? Because I do love our daughters, and I really want to make sure that I deliver if I'm going to commit to something. And because we have this agreement in place, I am now in a position where I don't break trust very often with either one of them, and it's hard. So I am not saying that this is an easy road to go down and identify. Ooh, yeah, okay. And a lot of this is understanding something that one of my colleagues, Lynn, and I talk about: reading the room, recognizing the unspoken behavior involved, seeing when people are really kind of tensed up, and having a one-on-one conversation, and being willing to be vulnerable. In Stephen M. R. Covey's book, there's trust behaviors, 13 of them that he lays out, and oftentimes at the very end of it is extending smart trust, which we do fairly readily, but at any point in time we have to look at all the trust behaviors above that final one and go, ooh, did I say something or not deliver at some point the results that were expected, and this is the reason why I'm getting a cold shoulder. This is really deep thinking. This is a lot of self-awareness, a lot of emotional intelligence, and so all of this goes into a set of skills that each and every one of us can develop over the course of time if we're really committed to doing it. But much of it is just trying to make sense out of a situation that we kind of feel like it's been shifted, identifying that point where an apology is offered and forgiveness is asked. And one of the things I want to say is that forgiveness oftentimes is not not for the other person's benefit, it's for our benefit, so that we can move on and begin rebuilding trust. Lots of thoughts in that, lots of different touch points. You may want to refer back to the recording at a later date if this is helpful to you. And I hope that kind of has answered the question. So,
Thank
Mike,
you.
anything additional there?
No more questions so far. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we are here at the home stretch, kind of bringing things in for our landing. So I wanted to recap the 3 points that I began with. Number one, I hope that you now can kind of recognize where this hero complex and associated behavior and getting a gauge for team trust comes from. Number two, I hope now you have some good practical examples for encouraging team enabling behavior from your heroes. And finally, the third point, I hope that you've been able to take away some insights on how to cultivate trust, develop just-in-time heroes, and heroic teams. So to wrap this session up, I'd like to challenge you to do some personal reflection on your level of trust, both with your colleagues in the team and as well maybe in your personal life, and what it means to everybody involved, because everybody is going to value this differently. Look at the dynamics between the members and assess the behaviors to determine if everyone is working together while avoiding dreaded drama that might lead to hero behavior or the hero complex showing up. If there are one or more heroes who erode trust, consider how different behavior might be encouraged while dampening or kind of maybe highlighting the undesirable behavior, and work to grow and develop those just-in-time heroes and heroic teams. See if you can spot the team members who seem to be surrounded by friction, the way that they interact with other members of the team. If you've got a hero who is consistently saving the day, under the radar, grumbles while putting out the fires, or fixes the complicated issues while not building team capacity to do the same, then you should consider having a conversation. Be empathetic, be understanding. Ask open-ended questions while avoiding the temptation to diagnose the origin of the hero's behavior. Work with the team to create opportunities for the hero to build, show, and teach the team how to be heroes, as well as creating a heroic team in the process. A goal should be to rebuild and restore trust while moving from the DDT to TED. In closing, if this session has resonated with you, I would like to invite you to connect with me on LinkedIn or send me an email. Feel free to visit my blog and save the link to your bookmarks. And finally, I would like to thank you for your attention and time. It was a pleasure to share with you. So until we connect again, be cool, stay calm, and learn on. Mike, any closing questions from the audience?
Thank you for those wise words, Tim. And let's give them a few moments for if anyone is writing right now their questions. As you mentioned, trust is the foundation of any successful relationships, and learning to be good team players is key to accomplish this goal. So for example, here in Improving, we combine each improver's strengths to create great teams and have this good culture. If I listened to your talk a few months ago, I may have felt called out, because it takes courage, as you mentioned, to step down out of the hero's role. And in the era of productivity, how do you think the company's culture can help to foster this transition instead of encouraging people to become heroes?
I think that if folks are honest and open with themselves and with their colleagues, and even to a great extent, leadership and managers can make that, have that self-awareness to assess where they're at and what they're doing, then it can shift the culture. And I will say this, we are extremely fortunate at Improving that two of the books that we consider foundational, Stephen and Mark Covey's The Speed of Trust, as well as another, guide so much of how we interact with each other. And that self-reflection, those moments of pause where, as an individual, whether you're in a leadership role formally or in a leadership role informally, it's recognizing that something isn't working in the environment, and if there's going to be a change, then oftentimes it has to start with me. It has to start at an individual level. And it's not going to happen overnight, because many companies have been around for years. There's a tangle of relationships involved, both from the standpoint of people who have worked together for years, in addition to, in certain cases, especially in smaller businesses, where there's familial relationships. But everything is going to boil down to that question of, am I part of the problem? And if I am, how do I start solving that? And it's not easy, and there are crucial conversations, which is probably another presentation at a different time for me to cover. And these are two-way conversations oftentimes. And there's got to be a high degree of trust involved, because to build or restore trust, oftentimes it just requires that the acknowledgement that I might get hurt if I'm the first one who's initiating, and I am willing to take that risk. And again, this is a courageous risk. This is not for the faint of heart. And sometimes it can be done in small ways, ways that are less impactful. Sometimes it's just about pardon the phrase, ripping off the Band-Aid and going into a conversation head on and saying, look, am I a part of the problem here? I need for you to tell me based on your assessment of what you're seeing, so that I can start changing behavior, because I don't know what I don't know. Does that help, Mike?
It definitely helps. Thank you. And I believe it was Claudio Lasalas in one of our previous improving talks that mentioned that once you begin seeing something, then you will notice it everywhere. And as you mentioned, when you know the trust behaviors by Stephen Covey, then you start noticing all these things around and looking on ways to improve them.
Oh yeah. Well, you say that, and I'm going to take a page out of my current client relationship. Oftentimes, I am asked, "Would you clarify your intent?" Wow, that's great. I'm not being clear enough, so I do. I'm like, I think I understand you to be meaning this. Am I correct? So that I can align my intent with the other person's intent, and vice versa.
I totally agree. And it's really hard to stop assuming and begin asking what is the real intent. So here we have another question from our audience that says, hi team, here Aldo Manica. Can you share the best and the worst experience related to this? Thanks.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I could share the worst experience if it wasn't classified. No, seriously, Aldo. I'll be honest with you. The worst experience was during that first deployment. It was near the tail end of it, and I had screwed up so badly. And that example I shared with the remissioning and trying to get us into Afghanistan, it kind of set the stage that by the end of our time together, nobody wanted to work with anybody else. It had turned so toxic. And my peers actually took me into a conference room, and they were very unkind. And if you've ever heard the term curse like a sailor, I probably got called every single curse word you can imagine, because they really felt that I didn't have a clue, let alone the capability of leading them. And part of that was my fault. And then there was other, there's the other side of that. Subsequently, I ended up asking my boss if I could stand down, because I strongly felt that things would escalate and get worse for everybody, and it would impact our ability to complete the mission. And so I had to swallow my pride, and I did step down, and it hurt. It hurt really bad. That's not what a leader ever wants to have to do, but I recognize that things were not going to improve. Now, I'll say the flip side of this, and this has actually been as a result of one of my recent client experiences here at Improving. We got past some of the really rough stuff on one of my teams. And I was really quick. I had a moment with a product owner where we were like this, and I thought I was doing the right thing, and I thought I was acting in positive intent, and I blew up on a call, and like within an hour after he and I went at it, I apologized. I said, look, I was wrong. I screwed up. There was damage control in the background that had to be done, but because it was very quick on my part to accept that I was wrong and I was eroding trust, to get that trust restored, to figure out a different way of working together with my product owner, it actually ended up being, out of the two teams that I was coaching, the more successful of the two. We actually delivered capability more rapidly than what we had even expected, just because I had a trust breaking moment, and I was kind of adamant about what I thought was right. We duked it out, had a moment, we recovered, and we moved on. So thanks for that question, my friend.
Thank you, Tim. We don't have any more questions on the chat. So I would like you to thank you all for joining us, and especially to you, Tim, for bringing us awareness about this important behavior. One of my personal takeouts is that, as you mentioned, that enabling rather than discouraging the hero's behavior is something that can enhance the team's experience and help to cultivate trust. It definitely seems like a daunting task, but it's worth to do it. And all right, if there are no more questions in the chat, I'll leave it open for 30 more seconds just to see if anything comes up last minute. Else, next week we will have a talk about state of data management and governance with Devlin Lyles. So we will love to have you here back next week. And let's wait for a few seconds. I don't know if you have any final words, Tim.
Hey, again, thank you for taking time out of your day, whether it be your lunch hour or on either side of that. I deeply appreciate your investment and trusting me to give you some good insights. So, the pleasure to present was mine.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim. And thank you, everyone, for being here. Have a good rest of the day.
Take care.